from Dancing with Ease, Body Brain Balance. And people hire me to teach them to move out of pain. The healing path is a path I think that we're all on, all of our lives, healing different things. And these conversations that I have, if you haven't been here before, are conversations with people who are working in different areas of healing, and sometimes might be areas you didn't even think of that were actually healing. So today, my guest is Scott Schwartz, and he'll tell you a little bit about his history, and we'll just chat about how you can heal your debt and what it means to heal your relationship with money coming in and money going out. So the important thing about healing is that it's a decision. I think that even whether we use Western medicine or Eastern medicine or alternative medicine or natural things or simple studies, the decision to heal is something inside of us that we make a choice. We make a choice and things change, doors open, we meet the people we're supposed to meet who will help us on our journey. And I see a few people here. If you wanted to say something, I think if you type it in the chat, it's great to have you. We can see your questions if you have any questions, and we can answer those. So here comes Scott. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Laura. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm well, and I'm so happy you can come today and talk about this, because I think especially the last 2 years have been certainly financially trying for people. And I think that being stuck in our homes and having to order everything online encouraged people to use credit maybe more than they would have in the past. And so that maybe even people who didn't ever have any problems with debt or struggle with debt find themselves in a situation where they aren't exactly 100% happy.
Right. And then you add on top of that so many people losing their jobs or losing clients and inflation. It's just been one thing stacked on top of the other that has really had a huge effect on people way beyond just their bank account, but on their psyche, their stress, their emotions.
Right. Well, would you like to tell us a little bit about how you got into this work?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I felt that stress.
Hang on one second. Somebody said there's an echo. Let me try this on my end. Oh, let's see. Echo cancellation. Try that. Echo cancellation.
Okay. Oh, that's better.
Our watchers said that, so hopefully this is better now.
Okay. All right. Very good. I'm an expert at feeling financial stress. I've been in that position to the extreme, and that really sent me on this journey to find answers. My situation, 2007, I lost a good job. I was laid off. Underlying that, I was really feeling trapped in a very, very bad marriage. And as long as there was food on the table and a roof overhead, I was getting along reasonably okay. Now, after losing that job and the roof overhead and the food on the table was suddenly tremendously stressful, it started a cycle to where things at home were even worse, to the point where I started self-medicating and became an alcoholic. Financially, it was so bad that to have some income, because remember, that was right as the economy was getting really bad, and finding jobs, even though I had a great work record up to that point, I couldn't find anything. To have some income, I went to the animal hospital where my then wife worked, and I was helping in the kennel. I was walking dogs and cleaning out poopy dog cages. And a friend of mine heard about that, took pity on me, and he hired me on in his floor care business. So I was sweeping floors and waxing floors by night and cleaning up dog poop by day. That was after I had been an executive at a major insurance company for years. Quite a crash, and it made the drinking worse, it made the marriage worse, it made the stress and the depression worse. Cycle, big cycle where nothing got better. I was on that treadmill running and not getting anywhere. And then after getting back in the insurance financial industry, getting a good job again, finally, one day I had the brilliant idea of sneaking a bottle of vodka back in with me on my way back in from lunch, was drinking at my desk, was discovered and terminated. And cannot begin to describe the feeling of emptiness that following Monday morning, realizing I, again, didn't have a job to go to. The next day, November 3rd, 2015, wrote out my suicide letter. I figured I was worth more, thanks to my life insurance policy, I was worth more dead than alive to my then 14-year-old daughter. And that was going to be my last day. Throughout that day, several things happened that made me kind of step back and think, wait a second, was that God reaching out to me, telling me to not do this? Finally, that night, right as I was about to execute this plan, I get a call from a friend of mine that I was supposed to be seeing that night. Hey, Scott, I see you're not here. Just wanted to check, make sure you're okay.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, now I know that was God reaching out to me saying, don't do that. And that day, November 3rd, 2015, that was going to be my suicide date, instead became my sobriety date. Haven't touched a drop since then. But that didn't solve the financial problems. I had been bankrupt, food stamps, short sell the house. I did one of those medical trial studies where they inject you with medicine. You stay overnight in their facility so they can see your reaction to it. I figured the most marketable thing I had to sell was my health. And then through that, figuring I was pretty much unemployable by that point, I like, okay, I have to do something on my own. I have to, and insurance and financial services is the world that I knew after over 30 years. So I started selling insurance. And I wasn't very good at it.
Oh dear.
And I was pitched by someone that I knew. He had gone from one company to another, reached out to me, asked me if I might consider making the same switch. One thing that was available through him was what was pitched to me as the best process for helping people get out of debt. Caught my attention because I knew how badly that's needed.
Right.
How huge of a problem debt is in our society. And I wanted it to be true, but my skepticism was just, sky high. This sounds too good to be true alarm was going off, because the way it was described is you can take your dollars and you can spend them twice. You can spend them to eliminate debt, and at the same time, it's growing interest as an investment. Didn't sound possible to me. The one question in my mind was not what is it, not how does it work. It was who does this. If it was other broke people that do this, then I wanted no part of it. So that's what I started researching. Who uses this? Turns out it's banks, the wealthy, Fortune 500 companies. Like, okay, so now I do want to know what is it, how does it work? And started this process of reverse engineering. Reverse engineering just how do banks use this? How do the wealthy use this? And was able to kind of take it from there. Start at the end, work your way backwards so that you're starting with what you know works. And then that way you know you're on the right path, a path that leads to the right destination because you reverse engineered it.
So how long? So I assume you did this for yourself, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And then,
With help, but yes.
but I mean, you did this process for yourself to
Yeah. Yes.
actually. What I'm hearing you say is it's managing your money more effectively than people are taught when you're taught, you know, $5 in, $5 out, and you
Mm,
just have this thing, and then as you get older, you think, well, okay, well, when my $5 goes out, I need to buy something that's not necessarily consumable, that will appreciate in value, like
mm,
a house, you know, n- not a brand new car that depreciates $10,000 as soon as you drive it off the lot. I mean, you start to try and assess those types of choices so that you can make a little better choice in the moment, but you're still dealing with
yeah.
cash in and cash out. And your thing, what you described, your thing, I love that. English is my first language, right? But this process that you're talking about sounds like a way to put money somewhere and also still be able to use it. So like unlike a CD, if you put your money in a
Right.
CD, it's pretty much locked up. It's safe, but locked up. So if you did this, can you tell us how long it took you to get out of the financial hole you found yourself in?
Yeah. Um, there's there is a lot of choices involved, kind of the way you described it, but you've got to have the right tools too. You need to train yourself in how you view money, which was a big thing for me because I had a lot of money issues going back to childhood.
We talked about
Um,
this, that we're both from the
yeah.
Midwest, and
Yep.
this, like, my mom would always say, like, things would be going good, and she's like, "Well, we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop." So you
Yeah.
always are having this feeling, even when things are going well, that all it takes
Right.
is one thing to
Yep.
upset the apple cart.
And that's what I grew up with, and I needed to come out of that by realizing that's a very limited viewpoint. There's basically, Laura, three mistakes that people use, that people do when it comes to their money. One is trial and error. They guess. They guess as to what will work, and 30 years later, oh, okay, I guess that didn't work. I mean, what can they do now? Nothing. All right, that's a financial agnostic. That's someone who says the financial truth is unknowable. Therefore, I'll try a little of this, a little of that, a little of the other, and hope I stumble across something that makes me feel good. Second big mistake is listening to your broke friends,
Ah,
even though they know they've got no idea what they're doing. That's a financial atheist. They figure there is no such thing as financial truth. Therefore, I am only going to connect with what I can see and touch with what's around me. Strengthen those relationships, knowing that it doesn't matter what I do with my money. Third mistake is listening to one of those financial entertainers yell at you that their way is the only way and everything else is dumb. That's a financial cult. Follow the leader, even though they've got no basis for what they're saying. The problem with those three things is they violate history and science. History has shown us that banks and the wealthy have got it figured out. They have blazed that trail, and they left breadcrumbs along the way that scientifically we can reverse engineer so that we can follow. that same trail. That means no more guesswork, no more listening to your broke friends, no more listening to Dave Ramsey yell at you to cut up your credit cards, work 3 jobs, and live on ramen noodles. That means now, okay, financial truth is knowable. The trail is there, and I can follow the experts not by listening to what they say, but by doing what they do. When we listen to what banks tell us to do, that's what makes them money, not what makes us money. When we do what they do, now we're creating additional streams of income. We're using guarantees, low risk investments that provide guarantees of returns. Now we're using tools. We're not just reading a book that says do this, but we're using a tool that helps to accelerate things. So now with that being said, getting back to your question, Laura, on how long did it take? It's a continuum, it's a spectrum. I hit that rock bottom point, more so emotionally, and then therefore also financially. Debt and stress are like twins. You know, where you've got one, you've got the other. And so I turned the corner and started digging my way out of that hole on that date, November 3rd, 2015. I don't know if I'll ever say that there's a point where, okay, now I've made it. Because it's a continuum. I never claim that I'm any better than anyone else. I may be just a little farther along in my journey, and that I can show them, tell them, here's the results that I can provide for you. Here's your numbers. And it's interesting, Laura. I know you deal with the emotional side of things, helping people get by their stress, and I help with the money part. Well, money is numbers. I was a stats major in college, believe it or not. I'm a numbers guy. But I do recognize, because of my past, because of the situation I was in, those numbers represent emotions. They represent stress. In the same way that you can measure the value of an investment by looking at the numbers, you can place a measure on someone's stress to an extent by those same numbers. And it won't get rid of, family problems or, whatever other things are going on emotionally. But it can lift some of that burden off your shoulders. That will then enable you to address the stressful things. And that was a process I had to work through. Fortunately, that marriage, that was a catalyst. It was a trigger for me that made me make horrible decisions.
It's a good way to look
putting
at it.
that behind me, yeah, putting that behind me, putting that in the past was necessary. And it helped me to turn that corner to where, okay, with that emotional trigger gone, and I had to work on myself, because I couldn't just wallow in being a victim. I had to take charge. I had to take responsibility. I had to take responsibility for the way I reacted to those emotional triggers. And after doing that, then my numbers got better. Then I was able to use the right tools to accelerate where I was going and what I was doing. And to work with people to help them to do the same is really helpful for me. And it really is what drives me professionally to help people make that same kind of progress, to turn that corner.
Right. Well, and the thing that's interesting about what you say, and I think that I know I did this for sure, is people say everything is energy, blah blah blah, and then I'm always telling people that your whole body is connected. And if you have tension in one place, right? If you just make a fist like this, then your voice gets tight. Well, that's because everything is tight. And if you stop squeezing that tight part, everything in your whole system, your brain, your body, your vocal cords, everything stops squeezing a tiny bit. And so then you're talking, and I'm like, and then you're saying, and when I address this and I address that, and then my numbers changed, and I'm like, because really, everything is energy, and the numbers just represent that energy in there. And so, and for a while I had like money is some other thing, and everything else I can manage in my life. And I thought it was mysterious, money, for a long time. It was magical. It was mysterious. Some people were lucky with money and other people weren't. I had that belief and so I think it's really interesting that you said you started with yourself, taking care of yourself and healing yourself. And then that moved you into a place where you could start to make better decisions. Because I do think in fear and panic, the decisions we make are not good.
Exactly. Yeah. And having a better understanding, and you and I have talked about this before, and you made reference to it here just a moment ago, but when the way our thinking is shaped by our environment, by our parents, by our upbringing. I remember distinctly being in grade school, seeing a film in class, not a video, a film. This goes back a long ways.
Flap, when it was over.
Yeah, reel to reel, exactly. And of course, if you're younger than 40, you have no idea what reel to reel means. But anyway, it was a documentary about how we're affected by the era in which we grew up. And it went through the characteristics of people, like what we would call today, the millennials, the Gen X, the baby boomers, but this was a few years ago, so it was going back farther than that. And what made an impression on me was talking about people that grew up during the Great Depression and how they view money, how they view the future. And it was just like you said, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because you just never know when the next financial disaster is going to come. And it hit me. My parents grew up during the Great Depression, and that is exactly what they did. Example, whenever we needed to get a car, the car is dead, we need to get a new car. Okay, well, first of all, it wouldn't be a new car, it would be a used car, which is fine. But they would pay cash for it. And it would be, I don't remember, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, whatever, for a used car. Here you go. Here's cash. Same woman, my mother, who the day before, when I asked for an ice cream cone, said, no, we can't afford it. And now she hands the man $10,000 cash. And in my very young mind, I'm like, how does that happen? And the money was there. They just were basically hoarders. Just hold on to it, because you never know when the next disaster is going to come. You need to be prepared. Money was never something to be enjoyed. It was always a source of stress, worry, and contention, always. And you hold on to it. You just hold on to it. You have it just to hold on to it. And trying to help people with their finances, one of the biggest mistakes is in trying to get out of debt is the fact that people focus on getting out of debt. Getting out of debt is working your way up to zero. Who wants to be at zero?
That's a good point.
You can't focus on reaching zero and have money for retirement, have, passive income, financial independence, however you want to frame it. You can't get there by focusing on working up to zero. You need a plan that will take you to zero and beyond. And you need to have the right tools to do that. I always illustrate it as a marathon, the beginning of a marathon. If the last Boston Marathon had 27,000 runners on one street, imagine what that looks like at the beginning. If you're at the back of that pack, you've got a long way to run just to get to the starting line. You're already tired before you start the 26.2 miles. The thing is, getting out of debt is reaching the starting line. Okay? The finish line is financial independence, retirement, however you want to frame it. Okay? So imagine here you've spent all this energy to reach the starting line. You're tired. And now a race official motions you over, says, "Hey, Laura, come over here. I saw how far you had to run. That's not fair. Just to get to the starting line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into the course and shorten that race for you." You would appreciate that, wouldn't you? That's having the right plan, where the energy that you put forth to work your way up to zero now teleports you into the course and shortens that race. You don't get there from reading a book. You don't get there from listening to someone on TV yell at you to cut up your credit cards. That's how you work your way up to zero. Maybe. That's a fad diet. That's a financial fad diet.
It's a great term.
And yeah, you can work, you can lose those, 15 pounds in a month, but then what happens the next month? Most people gain it right back. When you focus on working your way up to zero, I made it. What happens? Well, let's
you don't have
celebrate
a plan to grow, right? You don't have a plan to grow your wealth or your financial acuity.
And that's why focusing only on getting out of debt is self-defeating. How do people lose the weight and keep it off? Not by focusing on weight loss, by focusing on health, improved health.
Right.
Same way financially. You don't reach the finish line by focusing on getting out of debt, on getting to the starting line. It's overall financial health. Having a plan that serves you not only for this piece, but for the much bigger piece to come.
Right. That's one of our viewers says that the law of polarity is quite fascinating. We think we're focusing on something, but we're focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And you said it, focusing on financial health, not on debt. And the thing I tell people is, when you focus on what's wrong, right? Okay, so we decide being in debt is wrong.
Yep.
Even saying the word wrong, my whole body goes boom. Then we feel wrong, and we feel dumb because we got into debt, or we feel hopeless because we got into debt and we don't have a plan to get out because
Yeah.
actually we were in it, we were in trouble, which happens to everybody, and in this economy it happens to everybody more easily than you can imagine. And we used the tools that we had to keep going because keeping going seemed to be important. And
Hmm.
and so often those tools are a credit card, line of credit, home equity loan, whatever. We just keep things going, hoping that they'll
Yeah.
change. But we're doing the same thing. We aren't doing anything differently. And just like you
Right.
said, losing the weight, you have to change your eating habits. You have to eat to be healthy and nourish yourself. And so with financial health, you have to change how you use your money so that you are using it to support yourself
Hmm.
and build your health, your financial health. And what did somebody else say? Focus on what you would love. We call it the end result in our community. Yep. And somebody said, "Thank you, great conversation. Thank you." Yeah, it's an end result, but also I think the process is really important. I think,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
getting to zero is the wrong end result.
Hmm.
Financial health is the a better choice of image, idea, what you're going to, because you can improve your financial health as you are moving out of debt while you are still in debt, right? But you can
Yeah.
be becoming healthier, and then suddenly you're not wrong again. I mean, like, now you're not a bad person, or
Right.
all of these things that, because I think somehow with money there's a lot of judgment that comes with money.
Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. There is. People think that because they have debt, that means they're a bad person. And they are preyed on by these financial entertainers. They're brilliant marketers. They know exactly who they're talking to. They're talking to people with zero self esteem because they don't have the tools and because they view themselves as defective because, oh, I let my spending get out of hand. And so now I have debt. Debt is a systemic problem. It's systemic. It is the way our financial system is set up, where banks, government regulators, lenders, all of these different forces combine to keep us down, keep us in debt. And then you have these financial entertainers that prey on that and say, because another way of putting the way you just put it, Laura, is people look to external factors. If only the economy would change, if only the pandemic would end, if only this, if only that. They're looking to an outside source to rescue them. And then along comes these financial entertainers selling their books. If you just read this book and you just stop thinking and do what I tell you to do, then everything will be better. And who are they saying this to? People that are already thinking that they're a failure because they have debt. And instead of telling them how the system is rigged against them and how there are tools that exist that help them to overcome that, so that instead of trying to improve a broken system, they are circumventing it, not using the banks, but setting themselves up to be their own bank. They're preying on that, they're exacerbating the problem and selling a lot of books
Well,
and a
right,
lot
and
of
they're getting people who
courses.
are already in a bad place to buy this idea. If I just do this one thing right,
Yep.
this will
Yeah,
fix this. This will
exactly.
fix this.
Yep. Yep.
And like physical health, financial health is a process. It's a step by step thing, a change in habitual action.
Yeah.
So I found this really interesting, Scott. It's always fun to talk to you. I always enjoy it. And I have your link to your website so people can get in touch with you if they want to know more about how to take what they have in their life and begin to be their own banker.
Yeah.
And
Thank
so
you.
they just get on your website. There's a way to set up a time to chat with you, to connect.
Yes.
Awesome. Is there anything you want to close with?
Um, well, I definitely want to encourage people to, reach out and just assure that the answer isn't finding the right book. There are tools that you can use that will help you, just like the way we illustrated it there. The same energy that you use to reach that financial starting line will then jump you, teleport you into that course and shorten that race. It's not it's not reading a book. It's not just positive thinking. It
Right.
is a tool, a financial tool that will that is reverse engineered from the banks and the wealthy. They use this. It's how they build what they have, and we can copy it. We can imitate it by reverse engineering it.
And I'm thinking that it's people can start with a small amount of money and
Yes,
shift forward
and
and grow.
yeah, and what I do, Laura, I view the role of a financial professional. See, most will you meet with a financial advisor and they'll show you spreadsheets. They'll show you, I can make you X percent in such and such investment. Okay, now how much money do you want to put into it? What I view as the role of a financial professional is to look holistically at where they are today and then find what they are doing that's inefficient and reallocating it in a smarter direction so that I'm not asking people how much money you want to give me for this, but I'm providing them the money to put into this and helping them to see how they are now using what they're already spending more effectively so that they can run that race most effectively.
Somebody's written a question which I think is probably a topic for an entire other show, but we might come back to it and speak to it in the comments a little bit over time, which is what would you like to have happen in the schools to help future generations learn this from the start so that they don't have to make a mistake and go down the financial
Yeah.
uh, drain and then
And
crawl
an
back out.
excellent question. An excellent question because that's really how it starts is helping people at a young age to learn just how money works, not how the lobbyists want us to see money working, because again, that fills their pockets, not ours. And you're exactly right, Laura. That is going to be a topic for a whole different conversation. I haven't even gotten at all into the specific tool, which I'd be glad to talk about at some point. Um, and of course, it's modifiable, it's customizable, it's not one size fits all. But the listener's question there about what I'd like to see in the schools is for children to be taught that there are alternatives to the banks. I wish they were taught exactly how banks work, how the Fed works, how the Fed got started, who's behind it, and um, to know the other alternatives that we have that can be used so that people can make an informed choice. I think the biggest error as we grow up is thinking that is no choice but to put all our money in the banks.
Well, and
Or to
that if
put,
you need more money, all you have to do is work harder and you'll get more
yeah,
money. I mean,
yeah, or to buy that right stock.
oh yeah.
Um, all
Oh,
these speculative things,
yeah.
all these high risk things, they it's how Wall Street is set up, it's how the banks are set up to put money in their pockets, not ours. And I wish that kids were taught, how do you put the money in your own pocket in a way that is safe, liquid, and tax free? And
Sounding like
that's where it starts.
financial history. So, I mean, and I know a lot of people, again, another topic we probably have to come back and do another topic. But actual history, what looking at what happened, looking at what worked and what didn't work, and not just moving that thing to a new time and era, but what was it about the era that made that thing in history work? And you're
Mm,
right. They might teach sometimes if you choose a business tack. Well, I don't even know if they do this in high school anymore. So in my day, you could do a little thing in high school where you took stenography and typewriting and bookkeeping, so that you at
mm,
least learned some things. But aside from math, and all the way back in grade school, learning how to count and add, $5, $10 bills, and they didn't really teach us about the history of money. That's
no, not at all.
this is interesting. So
And,
on
and,
that
and
note, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
go ahead.
I'll stop.
That's what I was going to say. On that note,
We'll
we
be
have
here all
more to
day.
talk about in the future on this whole idea. Okay, so we did healing your debt. Maybe we try another one on financial health before too long.
Sure,
So
I'd be
thanks
glad to.
everybody for watching. I appreciate it. It's great to talk to you, Scott, and I know I'll be talking to you again.
Thank you, Laura. I look forward to it.